Welcome to the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, show 37. In our last episode, we had one of our Q&A shows. Today, we're chatting on how to delegate and hire in your business. Welcome to the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, where we bring you real-life strategies on starting and growing a business and finding financial freedom without sacrificing the life you have with your loved ones. We are your hosts, Tom and Ariana Sylvester, and we are married, we're parents, and we're serial entrepreneurs. This podcast is for those who want more out of life. We'll show you how to take the vision you have and create the business that will help you achieve it. Join us as we share practical steps, real life stories, and help you become a lifestyle builder. All right, you guys, welcome back to the Lifestyle Builders Podcast. I want to talk about reasons Tom and I make an awesome, also slightly weird team.
Very weird.
We'll just be open about that. We're kind of weird. So when Tom and I met in college, we kept finding these interesting facts out about ourselves where we went well. So like
peanut butter jelly.
Okay, well, not like peanut butter and jelly, but more like pizza and pizza crust.
Yes.
Tom's favorite part of the pizza is the actual pizza inside the circle.
Which makes sense.
And my favorite part is the crust.
And the crust is terrible.
It is not terrible. It's delicious. You leave a little bit of the pizza on the edge, and it's like this awesome sauce breadstick pizza creation.
So before Ariana, I would eat the pizza and then just leave the crust. And after Ariana, now nothing goes to waste because Ariana used to just eat the crust.
And we
not the
literally
pizza.
used to take a knife and like cut all the way around.
Well, even
the circle,
now,
and I would just eat the crust.
Well,
and Tom
our
would eat
kids
the
know
pizza.
too. So
Yep.
like mommy just like you don't even eat pizza
Rarely
anymore.
do I eat
You
the actual full piece of pizza.
you
I
just
eat
have the
everyone's crust.
Exactly. It works out well.
Also, salads. Salads typically come with like all the stuff on them, and Tom and I swap ingredients.
Yeah.
He likes onions. I like tomatoes.
Yep.
Neither one of us likes olives, so those just come off. We chuck those at my mother, probably.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, also, like I'm the parent who plays with the kids.
Yes,
Like
yes, you are.
they love to go on what they call the comfy bed, which is our like king size, like super comfortable bed, and we just make up games and play. And
They play with you. You will play with those kids everywhere, whether it's the floor, the
Trampoline.
couch, the trampoline, the swing set, just the ground in general.
Yep.
You are the playing parent, and I am definitely the more like laid back, creative parent.
you're like the crafting parent.
I am the crafting parent. We do a lot of things. We make things together. I love to sit and do puzzles with the kids, coloring with the kids, also snuggling. That's definitely my jam.
Yeah, I'm the early riser, so I'm up in the morning. I get the kids up. You like to sleep in,
Yep.
so you get to sleep in.
And I'm the stay up late, get the last load of laundry done, hang out on the couch with my laptop parent.
All right, so we could go on all day, but what this ultimately comes down to is that we balance each other out really well, and the things
Which is why we make a good team.
absolutely, which is the whole episode that we're talking about.
Yes.
today.
Creating your team, delegating and hiring people into your business.
All right, so before we talk about how to do it and all of that, the first question that always comes up is like, why should I have a team? Why do I need a team?
Mm-hmm.
And especially for people that it's a one person business,
Solopreneurs.
it's just them.
Yep.
Like, why do I need a team?
It's just me. I run the business.
Exactly. Here's the thing. Even if it's just you, and we've talked about this on previous episodes this month, there's a lot of roles to fill
There's
in
a lot
your
of
business.
hats.
And my guess is there's at least a couple of them you don't like or you're not good at.
Yep.
Or that you just have no business doing. So, for example, everyone that starts a business should have a lawyer and should have an accountant. Even if you enjoy doing the lawyer stuff, unless you're a lawyer, you probably shouldn't do it. Same thing with like your accountant. So even if you're a solopreneur, you're never going to hire a team. Guess what? Your accountant and your lawyer
Still
are
part of your
people
team.
on your team.
Yep.
So
You still need a support system of some sort.
yeah, and then even beyond that, there might be like your core business might be creating a certain thing, and you don't like some of the administrative stuff or whatever else. So being able to hire contractors or partner with the right people to take care of those things, even if you're never going to hire them in as like full employees, they're still part of your team.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it is sometimes nice we get that complex of being like Superman or Superwoman because we do all the things. But what you don't think about oftentimes is, we talked about the episode working on the business instead of in it. You can never really scale your business and take it to that big vision that you have, that big picture of what you ultimately want it to look like, if you don't start building the support and building a team around you.
Yeah, well, and you know, not everyone necessarily wants to build $1 billion business.
Correct.
But even if you are just building a business to give you more freedom, unless you have a team, you're going to be tied to your business.
Yep.
You know, we talked before about how, you know, you're basically, as an employee, you're trading your hours for dollars. And if you're a solopreneur or a freelancer, you're also doing the same thing, unless you're using leverage. And leverage could be tools and automation, but it's also likely a team.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you talked about it. There are things in your business that you're probably not good at. Some of us can get by with doing just the bare minimum, but that could ultimately hurt your business. If you are not good at doing certain things that your business needs to have to survive, you probably shouldn't keep trying to do those. You should probably try to find somebody, like as Tom said, either a contractor that you just hire in to do that stuff, or hiring in an employee or an assistant that's going to take care of that stuff for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that stands out with a lot of this is anything related to like your branding. Most people are terrible at branding, and
even some people that do branding for other people still hire someone else to do their own.
Oh yeah, I mean, most people, like even like as a coach, like I have a coach, right? Most of us are terrible at seeing our own kind of gaps and that type of thing. But yeah, like what's great about these days is there's so many tools that makes things so simple. But what's a terrible thing about these days is there's too many tools
that means we
make
think
things
we
so
all
simple.
can do everything.
So just because you have Canva doesn't suddenly mean that you have an eye for design. Or just because you can create a website easily with WordPress and using a theme like Divi that we use doesn't necessarily mean that you have an eye for how it all goes together.
Yep.
And there's a lot of cases where, you know, people have really good products, but just because they tried to DIY everything, that didn't come across in the branding and in the presentation that people see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. But here's the thing. Everyone says, how do I hire the right people? How do I know the people I hire in are going to be right for my business? Because I hear that one all the time.
Well, you know, and what I find a lot of times, most people are terrible at interviewing. Just going to say it.
Tom Truth Bomb.
And I've been on both sides of that. You know, I've been interviewed, and you know, throughout different roles I've had in my career, and even with our businesses, I've interviewed a lot of people. And what I've found, you know, there's a lot to it, but I'll just start out with how I interview and how I kick it off.
Yes, tell us your first. You have like two favorite questions,
I have
right?
two questions that I start every interview off with, and the first question is, you know, tell me your story.
Very open-ended.
And it's very open-ended, and you know, here's the thing: I'm less concerned about what people say in a lot of cases, but more of kind of reading between the lines and how things are. So tell me your story so open-ended. So what am I looking for when someone's responding? You know, how well do they communicate, right? Are they long-winded and they go on for 20 minutes about it? Do they give me 2 words and that's it? Or do they take a couple minutes and walk through it in a good way? What do they think's important? So they're talking to me about potentially getting a job. Are they highlighting the right things that are relevant to that? Do they start back, I was born and blah, blah, blah? What do they show? What don't they show? How do they communicate all of that? That teaches you not only what they think is important and how they kind of react on the spot to something open-ended, but then how do they communicate? How do they manage their time? You see a lot of that from there. And then the follow-up question that I like to do is, all right, so why are we chatting today? Once again, another kind of open-ended question, but most people aren't ready for a question like that. So what tends to happen is that either they fumble or their true intentions come out, you know? So, well, you know, I just graduated college and I really want to work at Google, so I'm just looking for a job to kind of get me there. Okay, well, now I kind of know where this person's head's at. And you might be listening and saying, okay, nobody ever says that.
Yes, they do.
I've heard so many people that will say something like that, and to be honest, that's just going to crush an interview unless you're just looking for somebody part-time or whatever. But then from those two questions, I usually don't have a lot of questions that I have predetermined. What I like to do is just kind of go with the flow and build off of what they say and dive deeper.
Obviously, you have a lot of experience with this, though. So as somebody who's new to it, you may want to do a little research into like what are the common questions that you should just be covering. A lot of times too, I know that one of the things that you ask is, do you have any questions for me? So you always want to ask the interviewee if they have questions for you, because you see if they're prepared for the interview, if they've researched the business that they're trying to get a job with, kind of like, what are they thinking? Where are they coming from on this? So that's going to come out in some of their questions to you.
Yeah, I always get very concerned when somebody doesn't have a question back to me, because when I run an interview, I don't tell people a lot. I ask questions and I tell them very little about what's actually going to be expected.
Yeah, what you're looking for them to ask is like, what are your expectations of me for this job?
Correct. And if someone's first question is, how much am I going to get paid?
Then that is a big indicator.
Yeah, so I mean, you see a little bit of their motivation in that. But if someone says, what's the biggest things that you're looking for somebody to be good at this position? Really good question, right? Because they're seeing if it matches up to them. So the other thing too is I and most people, you want to hire people that are going to be able to act on their own. And it's not to say that everybody's going to be that way, but the last thing you want to do when you hire someone is to constantly be having to be
micromanage
there and micromanage. What you want, because there's like two different types of people too. There's people that just want to follow a process, and there's people that want to break the mold and create a process.
I am definitely a process follower.
Yeah. So part of it too, when we're going into this and how you craft your questions, what you want to be looking at is, what's the expectation of the role, and then which type of person and what type of characteristics are critical for that role. Because a lot of times, if you just put the right person in the wrong role, it's going to work out terribly. If you put someone that's very creative and gets bored with repetition into a role that's doing the same thing every day,
and they don't get any say,
they're gonna go crazy.
From it.
Yep. On the flip side, if you take somebody that's used to process and consistency and you throw them in a role where they've got to kind of create their own schedule or problem solve, they're probably going to be too terrible at it. So what you really want to do is, as you're kind of laying out your job description, the expectations, figure out how much of this is follow the procedures and repetition versus how much of it is this is going to be new, creative. You've got to be more self-motivated. And a lot of what I like to do is put people in scenarios that are likely going to happen and see how they would react. So like, for example, one of our coaching clients, he had just started hiring. He hired like 2 people. They were terrible experiences. So we went through this process, and I said, well, tell me about what you're looking for out of them. And he was doing e-commerce, and he was doing retail arbitrage. So people were going to stores with basically a list of things he wanted to buy. And I said, well, what things could you see them doing wrong, or what things are you nervous about that, you would want them to act a certain way? And he's like, well, if they don't have the items on the list, I would want them to do this. So I would say, okay, present them with that scenario and see how they react. Are they reacting in the way that you would expect or not? Because there might be a certain level of decision making where you say, all right, well, if it's not there,
buy something else,
or if it's not there, buy more of the other thing. So by thinking about how you want somebody to act or how you want it done, and then crafting a question so that extracted from people, you'll notice that a lot of this is not focused on like the skills or anything, but it's more about their thought process, their decision making, and their personality.
You bring up a great point. One of the best tools for somebody who is looking to hire people in to help them in their business is personality tests. Now, we've talked about these before when it comes to working with your spouse or communicating with your spouse, like in your personal life versus business, all of that stuff. But it's also a really powerful tool when you're starting to build a team in your business. And the reason being, we talked about how we fit well together. Those weird things where I like the crust and you like the pizza. When it comes to business, there are going to be personality traits that you as the business owner has, but there are also going to be gaps. So when you're looking to hire people into certain roles, one part to look at is, what type of person are you looking to hire? Are you looking to hire somebody who is very detailed and can follow the same process every time, is going to catch you when you forgot something and make sure that it gets done anyways, and is going to make everything run like a well-oiled machine? Well, then you probably want to have your potential hirees take a personality test and see whose thought process follows alongside of that. Who is a process follower? Yep. On the flip side, if you're the person, like if you're me, I'm the process follower, I maybe need somebody who's more on the creative side, who can be the big picture thinker and say, well, what if we tried this? And what if we did it this way instead? And did that part of the thinking for me so that I can focus on the stuff that I do well. You want to do a personality. You want to match up those people so that as you're building your team, as you're building out your systems and your processes, everything flows really well together because you and your team members accentuate each other's personalities and types of problem solving and types of thought processes. You don't want to be clashing with somebody who's very similar to you and you put them in a role that takes other traits that they don't have, because it's not going to work. So having people take personality traits to kind of just see where they stand can create a really good working dynamic. What I also want to point out is I've seen people online who are like, oh yeah, I had all these people take personality traits, and based on the track record, or based on what the personality trait report said, this person would be a good fit. But I meshed better with this person during the interview. Like, don't use personality tests as an end-all be-all.
Yep,
because there are going to be times where somebody on paper fits the position, but when it comes to the emotional, the communication, like the dynamic that you have with the person in real life, they may not be perfect on paper, but they're going to work out better for you.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really good point around fit.
Yep.
Part of fit is, can you work with them?
Yeah. Can you not drive each other crazy?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes for an interview, take people to a different environment, depending on your business and whatever. But rather than being in an office, go in a conference room, or go take somebody out to lunch, because changing up that environment will change things. And, you're going to have to work with this person. And if you have a team, one of the big things I'm amazed that, like, even most Fortune 500 companies that I worked with, they would never have the person interview with the team that we're going to be working with, because, the fit and making sure that you're hiring the right person that can fit with you and work with the team. And then also that aligns with the mission and culture of the organization.
Yep.
Because here's the thing. A lot of people, one of the biggest mistakes they do is they hire for skill. They say, I need somebody that can do this, this, and this. And they completely forget or neglect the personality, the alignment of values. Because here's the thing. If you have somebody that loves your company and loves what you do, they're gonna go to the end for you. And
they're going to learn whatever they have to learn to do their job.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, there's always a base level of skills people have to have.
Yep.
But most of it can be taught, or you can send them and learn somewhere else. But you're not going to be able to take somebody who's really skilled, that doesn't believe in your mission, that doesn't want to work with the team, and make them
fit.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if anyone's played sports,
it's also going to stress the crap out of you.
Yeah, and here's what tends to happen. You bring somebody like that in, they end up pushing the people that are a good fit away.
Yeah, you screw up your entire dynamic instead of just the working relationship between you and that person.
Correct. I mean, like, if you've been on a sports team, or we've all seen it, where there's somebody that's maybe really good, but they just don't fit in. They don't mesh with the team.
They don't get along.
And most teams are better off not having that person there than having them there, even if they're very skilled.
Yep.
So fit to the team and then to the culture and to the overall mission and values are so critical.
I love that analogy. It's a good one. Speaking of culture, a lot of people don't think about this until it's in hindsight. That's creating a company culture. So obviously we're using the word company. It doesn't matter if your company is a team of 50 people or your company is a team of 5. you have a company culture.
Yep.
Now, that culture ultimately is going to begin with you. It's going to begin with you, your business, your values, your focus, your mission. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to create? Who are you trying to help? So it's hard to find people that are going to fit that if you haven't yet defined it yourself.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you, it is tough to figure this out.
It is really tough.
I'll give a couple good references depending on where people are at. So we've mentioned the book Traction before. The beginning of Traction actually has some exercises to figure out your values. The challenge is that Traction is really targeted at, I would say, small to mid-sized businesses that already have teams. And basically the approach they take is help extracting it from your teams.
Yep.
But you can take some of that and even apply it to yourself. Patrick Lencioni will put an article on the show notes page at tomandariana.com/37. He's written a lot of great books. He's actually going to be the one that I recommend on the bookshelf today. We'll find an article and we'll throw it on that site. He talks about values, and there's the values you have, like your core values. Mm-hmm. There's aspirational values that you would like to have, but you don't have yet. And then there's other ones that he calls table stakes, which are just what you have to have. Every company needs to have these things. But when it comes to values, it's tough to do. But
it took us like an entire day to sit down and really think through this stuff.
Yeah, and it took us a couple of years probably to
get to the point where we were ready.
We could do that. Yeah. So not that you got to wait years, but I'll tell you, going through this helps clarify so much on what's important to us, who we want to partner with, who we want to hire, what we stand for, how we make decisions. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the most important things you could do, even if it's just you right now, defining, what is your overall vision and what is your values. And then especially if you have a team, this is critical because your team doesn't know what's in your head and they can't align with you if it's not extracted and shared with them. Mm-hmm. So do you want to walk through maybe some of our values?
Yeah. I think that would probably be helpful for people just to kind of to hear us talk about how we figured them out. And then a lot of times too, what you can do is you can define what your values mean, but then you can also find phrases or terms that you want to use to share them with other people. Like a lot of people have their mission statement and their core values like on their website somewhere so that people can see them. So our first and foremost, the phrase that we stand by is always do the right thing.
Yep. And here's, that could be different for every person, but basically for us, it's like if we come to a decision, we say what's right and we'll do it. So an example of this, our real estate business, there was an issue with one of the properties. It wasn't really our issue. It wasn't really the tenant's issue, but it caused them inconvenience.
Yep.
We stepped back and said, what's the right thing? Well, we're going to refund their money for this time, and then we're going to go above and beyond and just make sure that they're super happy by giving them some extra stuff.
Yep.
Now, ultimately, it is our responsibility, and doing the right thing is what we did there. Now, there's a lot of different situations that come up. Like, let's say somebody joins our program and isn't happy. Actually, somebody did this. They joined our program. They said, you know what? I really liked what you guys have. I wish I could be a part of it, but my finances just aren't good right now.
Yep.
What's the right thing to do? We're going to give them their money back and make sure they're good.
Yeah.
So that's a key one that we always stand by, and we want our employees to stand by as well.
Yes. Always do the right thing.
Our next one was really our tagline, which is your life, your business, your way. And, we came up with that to really say that's what we stand for. It's your life. It's your business, and you're going to do those in a way that makes sense and that allows you to have that life and business you want.
Yeah, so that may mean sometimes going against the grain and going against the mold and disagreeing with people out there that tell you have to do it this way and you should be doing this and you should be hustling 24/7. No, there are many of us who have been able to build businesses the way that we want them to be so that it supports our life the way we want it to be. So that was one of our main values and continues to be, which is why it is everywhere.
Which is why it's our tagline. So the next one is, walk the talk. And we said, this is no sugarcoating.
Yep.
what we see happen a lot of times, like people are like, Tom, I can't believe you're so honest. I can't believe you would say those things. And
I can't believe you share all those stories of things that you actually did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and clearly this is wearing off on you because you're now doing more of this as well. But a big thing we believe is, really have integrity. Do the things you say, and if somebody needs to hear something, whether it's feedback or a tough question,
tough love,
we're gonna do it because ultimately we've got to have integrity with that.
Yeah.
And this sometimes doesn't make us the most popular people. Oftentimes
we have people come back and thank us for having the tough love with them.
Yep.
Maybe at the time they didn't see that it was helpful, or they didn't feel like it was the right thing to say. But eventually they'll come back and say, I'm really glad you said that because no one else said it. And I realized that's what I needed to hear.
Yep.
So it can be tough. Sometimes your values may be tough to stand by, but if they're important to you, then it is really important to define them and to do your best to stand by them all the time.
Yeah.
Another one of ours.
So just quick on that point though. So there's Southwest is a company that does a really good job of defining their values, and I forget what they are offhand, but it's like low cost, have fun, something else. And there was a story about this woman that basically wrote a letter to the CEO, Herc Kelleher, and said, long letter, very upset. It's very unprofessional to have your flight attendants sing on the plane and blah, blah, blah. And so Herb Keller, he gave her a response and said, sorry, we will miss you as a customer. And basically that was saying, this is what we stand for. And if it's not for you,
then don't
that's
fly
okay.
with us.
Yep. But that's, I think, a great example of where it could be difficult, but you've got to stand by these values when you come up with them. Otherwise, they're worthless.
Yes.
All right. So before I interrupted you.
Before you interrupted me, I was going to say one of our other themes was family relationships. So obviously we are a family-focused business. We talk a lot about our family and wanting to create a life for our family that we've always dreamed of. So for us, one of the phrases was family first, then impact. So we feel that it's really important to take care of our own family first, because if we're not, then we're not going to be able to have the impact that we want on other people. So like they say, put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help anyone else.
Yep.
When it comes to our businesses and our values, we need to take care of our little family circle first, make sure everything's good so that we can ultimately have a bigger impact on everyone else. And we can walk the talk, show them we're taking care of our family, of our kids, before we're worrying about building an empire.
Yeah, and a lot of people come to us, and an important question everyone always asks is, why do you do what you do, right? And it's good for us all to have answers. And as we answered that over the years, it came back to first building that life for our family, and then two, having an impact. And that's even tied into how we teach people. And part of a vision board, we always say is, the first two things are for you and your family with things and experiences, but then it's impact.
Yep.
So that stems through and through everything that we do.
Yep. And our last main theme is business relationships. And our phrase for that is collaboration, not competition.
Yeah, I mean,
really important one for us.
Yeah, and for us, like we don't see other businesses even in the same space as competition. What we always look at is how can we help? How are we serving our audience? And obviously, people are going to self-identify and they're going to find different places because maybe you're not the best fit for them. That's okay. You ultimately want to attract the people that are laser beamed onto you and your business and want to work with you. Yeah.
And
I mean, and we've done this in every one of our businesses. In real estate, we basically went in and said, hey, other landlords, let's help each other instead of all be competition. So instead of lying to each other and then passing bad tenants that then ruin our property, and then we make less money, and then we have less money to invest in our property, and it's this bad cycle. We said, how about we're just honest with each other, and we tell each other when tenants are good or when they're bad. How about we each make our properties nice, and then as we're not passing around these bad tenants,
bring the level
we can
of
then charge more.
up.
And guess what? When we can charge more, we have better tenants. They take care of it. We don't have as many expenses, and they stay longer. We make more money, and the community's happy. Good. With our wine and liquor store,
win-win-win.
Yeah. Win-win-win. That's what we always look for. That should be another one. Win-win-win. That should be another one. But like our wine and liquor store, there's actually another liquor store in town about a half a mile away.
Well, and then there's also one 10 minutes from us that your dad owns.
Yeah. And we said, here's our lane, here's who we're going to serve, and here's how we're going to do it. So we focus on customer service, we focus on having a selection, and we don't compete on price. And, you know, some of the other stores, they have a different role. They might compete on price or they might do something else. So to us, we're going to stay in our lane and we're going to serve who we serve. And we're not going to see those other stores as competition.
Yep.
In the online space, there's a million people that also work with entrepreneurs. Some of my coaching clients now could be competition. And, you know, I've had questions in the past of like, well, why are you training your competition? I'm like, I'm not. I'm training people so that we can all go out and fill this mission of helping more people.
Yep.
Right? Because, I mean, here's the thing. There are so many people in the world, so many customers that you don't have to feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big part of how we operate. We don't see other people's competition. We're like, how can we help you? How can we help create that win-win-win?
Yeah, I love it. So another part of creating a healthy company culture, since we just went off on a slight tangent about values, is communication. And I see this one so much. People, you get into that mode of complacency. Everyone knows their job, so everyone just goes and does their jobs. But if you don't have a process for how you communicate with each other and a plan in place for how often you're going to communicate, what you're going to talk about, all of those things, you will very quickly fall into disarray with your team.
Yeah, well, and another part of this is this starts before somebody even knows about your company. Like it goes into how did they find you? What does your website look like? It goes into how do you conduct the interview?
Yep.
What does your workspace look like? It goes into what does their first day look like? How do you welcome them? It goes into, you know, are you sharing your mission and is everybody aware of it? Right? It goes into all of those things that tie it together. And one of the biggest things that I see leaders struggle with is I'm like, you know, one of the questions I always ask is, you know, does everyone know the top 3 goals that we're working on or working towards? Does everyone know why we're in business? And leaders are always like, oh, yeah, I told them at the company meeting or I sent out an email. And then I go and talk to the team members and most of them have no idea. And the big challenge that we have is that we think communication is I say something once and everyone gets it. It's got to be communicated in voice, in email.
I just saw this somewhere. I forget where I saw it, about how many times when you are trying to teach someone else to do something, how many times you're going to have to repeat it before that person feels comfortable enough to do it over and over again.
A lot more than you think.
A lot more than you think.
And this is where people run into issues because they don't put the time in, they don't realize that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is if you have team members, as a business owner, you are ultimately responsible for making sure your business is healthy. That includes making sure your team members are happy in their roles within your business.
Yep.
So one of the things that we ourselves do, but obviously you also suggest this out to anyone who has a team, is to have those weekly meetings and even sometimes daily meetings where it's like you take 10 to 15 minutes every day and you check in with everyone on your team. Now, this doesn't have to be in person. A lot of us entrepreneurs are virtual. We have virtual teams. This could just be a simple phone call, a simple video chat. Hey, let's jump on quick. Everyone walk through what went well yesterday. Did you have any struggles with anything? Was there anything you weren't able to do and why? And let's tackle those issues so that you can do all the things you need to do today.
Yep.
Same thing with the weekly meetings. Did anyone have anything that came up that was a problem? Let's talk about our wins. Let's celebrate as a company. And then let's work on improving things for the next week. So having these communicative processes within your team only helps you improve on a consistent basis rather than waiting until a big problem becomes huge because you haven't talked about it and no one has said anything because they're afraid to raise an issue. you want to be open and say, come to me when there are problems. Let's solve these things together so that as a company, we can move forward together.
Yeah, I mean, one of your biggest roles as the leader is creating the right environment for your team to succeed. Because, when it's just you, you're the only one responsible for the success and doing everything. As you start building a team, your role then shifts to getting clear on the mission and doing the strategy stuff, then communicating it and make sure everybody knows, hey guys, here's where we're going and here's the steps that we're going to take to get there. And even sometimes involving them in on that process so they're a part of it. And then when we're all working in the same direction, it's amazing what can happen. And when you have the environment to support that, when you're doing daily meetings so that everyone's on the same page, even something like that, like a lot of times people abuse technology. They use emails or they do things to avoid conversation. That's why that daily meeting is so powerful. So now instead of waiting a day to get an email response or having an issue happen that could have been resolved in 5 minutes, but we didn't know about it. Any of those things, that daily stand up or that daily huddle, avoid so much of that.
Yeah. And I want to point out here, remember what we talked about in the beginning? To do the things you don't like or excel at, that's why you have a team. If you aren't good at managing people, at creating a healthy company culture, this would be a good point to hire somebody in to help you do that. There are a lot of people who hire in assistants that are purely there to make everyone in the business happy, make sure everyone is communicating, make sure everyone knows what's going on at all times. I've seen it now. There's a new term that a lot of companies are using. Instead of HR or human resources, there's a happiness manager. People think it's funny, but honestly, that's what it's about. It's about having that open communication with your team members and that person being a good go-between between you and your team. If you're not a good communicator or if you're not a good manager type person, if you can't play that role well, then you have somebody there that does and that can pull you in and pull the team in and make one big happy company.
Yeah, and so we've referenced this book actually even on this show, Traction. The people that created that, they have a system called the Entrepreneur Operating System. And one of the roles, or they define two roles, a visionary role, which is where most entrepreneurs fall. This is big picture thinking, big stuff. This is me. And then they define another role that most entrepreneurs are lacking, which is an integrator. This is the person that's going to pull everything together, look at the details, plan things out. And you want to, like, if you're a visionary, one of your first hires is probably going to be an integrator. And that's where they actually have a personality test to say, are you more of a visionary or integrator? And, you mentioned doing those personality tests before you hire. This is a great example of where that then falls in.
Yep.
Because when you then have somebody in there, you as the visionary can stay in your lane and do what you do, and that integrator can help pull everything together and really support you.
Yep. And then the last part of the company culture is really having those systems and processes in place so that everything runs well. And obviously we talked about this more in depth in show 35, how to implement systems and processes. But when you are looking to build out a team, when you're looking to hire people, this is going to be absolutely essential for you to have these in place before you're pulling people into your business, because you don't want to pull people in and then be trying to figure out your systems and processes.
Yep.
You want to kind of have that already established and then pull people in that are either going to be able to follow those or help you improve upon them.
Absolutely. And that's so key. This is going to help you with so many things. It's going to help you understand how your business runs. It's going to help you even as you go to hire and make job descriptions, right? Because one of the things you should have on the job description is, what is this role or person going to be responsible for? And if you've already crafted processes, even at the high level, you don't have to have all the details there, but if you can say what the end result is, and then kind of the basic stuff and some of the qualities or even skills that person might need in that role, it's going to help you build a better job description and then do a better interview process to make sure you get the right person in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, what was that, show 35?
Yes.
Yep.
Systems and processes.
So we went through a lot on why those are beneficial, how to do them, all of that in that show. So definitely check that out if you haven't. But now this builds on it because you can then use those as you're expanding your team, as you're looking to hire somebody. And it just makes the whole thing so much easier.
Yep. All right. So for this week, my homework for you is going to be, if you haven't already, go and take one of those personality tests. Now, we've talked about these before. We've taken multiple different types of personality tests. Tom mentioned the book Traction has one specifically for visionary integrators. We've taken the DISC assessment. We've taken the Strengths Finder. We've taken Colby. I know I'm missing one. Myers-Briggs. So there are a bunch out there, but what I would say is kind of look to see what you're trying to identify. Some of these tests are more on your own characteristic traits and personality traits. Some of them are more on how you problem solve and how you process things. So when you're looking for which one to take, make sure you're picking one that's going to help you learn enough about yourself so that when you go to hire, you understand where the gaps are in you and you can look for somebody that has those strengths.
Absolutely. And so my homework is going to be, I want you guys to write up the job description for the next role you need to hire.
Ooh, he's getting tough over there.
Now, this might be your very first hire. This might just be the next team member you need to fill. But I want you guys to write that out. And if you listen back to this episode, you'll figure out some of the key things, right? So what are the characteristics you're looking for? What are the personality traits that you're looking for? Which processes are they going to be responsible for fulfilling? So if you start writing that out, you're going to get a step closer to hiring that. And then when you do go and hire that person, you're going to have a really good foundation for interviewing and making sure you get the right person there. Mm-hmm. So the other thing, so the next thing we have coming up is really the bookshelf, right?
Yes. Sorry, my brain just totally went.
I think we just got like a
Amber alert or something.
Yeah.
So yes, bookshelf. You've got a book for us today called The Advantage.
Yes. So this is by Patrick Lencioni, and I've mentioned him a couple times. Mm-hmm. The book's called The Advantage: Why Organizational Health Trumps Everything Else in Business. Ooh. And hello. So Patrick's books, he's been consulting for a long time, and all of his books are written around common challenges that come up when you work with a business and how to overcome them. So he's got another one called like the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but they're all written as business fables. So you kind of see the story coming through. This is his latest book. And this is something that I've given to every leader and every executive team that I've ever worked with. And basically what this book is talking about culture and why this is the easiest thing to have an impact on a business, but why most don't do it. And so he talks about these 4 disciplines in there. And the first one, he says, you got to build a cohesive leadership team. So the leaders of the business, you need to be working together. Even if that's just you or just you and your integrator, you need to have that. Then he says you need to create clarity because oftentimes what businesses don't have is clarity. What are we going after? How are we doing it? How do we operate? And the next thing is then you need to over communicate that clarity. So everybody has to know where are you going, how we get there. That's your employees, that's your customers. And then you've got to reinforce clarity. So you've got to then support and set up the environment for that. And like I said, I buy this book for every leader that I work with, and so much of what's in this book is really what every business can do to be successful, but it seems light and fluffy, and we can't touch the culture or communication, so we don't focus on it. We focus on the hard skills, like I just want to market more, I just want to sell more, but this is really the thing that separates the okay businesses from the exceptional businesses.
Yeah, obviously it's something you are very passionate about as well.
It is.
And of course, you can learn more about the last couple topics we talked about here in the blog post. We talked about being the boss of your business, working on it, not in it. We talked about systems and processes. And now we've talked about creating the team to ultimately support and help your business grow. So we will put the link to that in the show notes, which is tomandariana.com/37. He's nodding at me. All right. It has been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
And as always, remember, it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Do you want real-time guidance and support from seasoned entrepreneurs who really care about your results? If you're nodding your head or awkwardly shouting yes in public somewhere, then we invite you to join Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. You can find out more at joinlifestylebuilders.com.
Your life, your business, your way. Join Family Entrepreneur Life. Join Family Entrepreneur